يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Saturday edition of Let's Talk with me, Julie Ali. Welcome, great to have you here, and as always, welcome to our guests. We have some super guests in studio this morning talking about some amazing topics. We're going to talk to Shabana Ebrahim about biodegradable packaging. We're also going to be talking to Gretchen Wilson-Prangley about Play Africa and safe play spaces for our children, and this of course in light of what's happened recently, the abduction, child trafficking and the rape of little children. And our first guest in studio is also going to be talking about safe spaces for children and how we have these conversations about protecting our bodies and our environment. She is none other than author, public speaker and parenting expert. I think this is the third or the fourth time she's in studio with me, and always absolutely fascinating talking to her. She is the lovely Nikki Bush. She's an author of the book called Future-Proofing Your Children, and she's written a whole host more. We're going to ask her to tell us about those, but for today we are going to focus on our children and how we make them safe, we make them savvy, we teach them the right language, and we teach them about how not to allow perpetrators perhaps to cross boundaries. Nikki Bush, good morning, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Julie.
So much there in the introduction. So, like I said, this is about the third or the fourth time I have you here, and you have an amazing mind and brain that I love picking. You've written the book Future-Proofing Your Child, and you've written a few more books. Tell us about those, and when, how did this all start for you?
Yes, Julie, so Future-Proof Your Child is actually now 10 years old.
Oh, my word.
Believe it or not, and that's been a best-selling parenting book and continues to be in high demand. And that really is about preparing our children for the world of the future. What does the world of work look like, and what do we need to do to prepare our kids for that world that we as adults can barely even imagine ourselves? And then Tech Savvy Parenting, that is the book that's all about helping parents to find their middle ground when it comes to technology and their children. We live in not an either-or world, as in we can't say you can't have technology, or we can't give children carte blanche with technology. We need to find our middle ground. It's an and world, technology and our children, and we have to learn to navigate that world in a responsible way and teach our children to navigate that world responsibly too, because it all boils down to choices. And then the other book that's also been a smash hit has been Easy Answers to Awkward Questions.
Ah, I'd love to get my hands on that book.
So that is all about sexuality education and your child, and it's a huge topic, and it's a topic that parents don't deal with very well on a worldwide basis. We tend to get very embarrassed, very shy, very awkward about these questions that our children really want answers to, and they want answers from us, their parents. So that book has been amazingly successful, also comes in two languages, English and Afrikaans. And there are a number of ebooks as well. There's Parenting Matters 1.0, Parenting Matters 2.0. There's Back to School Sanity Savers, which we can talk about maybe in January.
Absolutely.
And there's another one called Talent Redefined, which is all about how we look at talent in the workplace today, because it's all changing. Everything is changing. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I know we're talking about safety this morning, and safety has always been an issue for families and parents. So it is something that we need to put on the agenda, just like we have, I hate to say it, the sex talk with our kids.
And that's awkward. And if you don't know how, it's going to be awkward not only for you and the child. And I think the child's going to walk away from that conversation.
So, Julie, I don't like this term of having the sex talk or having the safety talk. I think we need to have a series of conversations over a long period of time with our children, starting from an early age, rather than sitting them down one day at the age of 8, 9 or 10 and saying, now I need to have this conversation with you. Because children do not enjoy speeches. They don't enjoy being lectured to. We need to drip feed important information to our children as we go along. When we're in the car, when we're sitting at the dinner table, when they're in the bath, when we see something on the news, when we hear something, use it as a teachable moment, rather than sitting down and saying, now we need to talk. It's exactly the same, Julie, when we talk to children about, when we're trying to impart mathematical skills, for example. You don't sit down and say, now we're going to do long division, or we can... Actually,
it's too prescriptive, and they're going to switch off.
Not practical. For maths, just as an example, you go shopping and you buy a packet of bananas and a packet of apples, and you've got a preschooler in the house. Well, get them to unpack them. Count how many apples are in the bag. And if there are 4 family members, how many groups? Can they make 4 groups of apples that have the same number in them from what was in the packet? Now that makes learning meaningful.
Absolutely.
Because I can see, touch and feel.
True.
I'm doing something with the information. You're not just telling me. I can interpret it and I can do it. How many bananas in the hand of bananas? How many fingers on your hand? So once again, it's
got to
really
be fun and meaningful.
and concrete.
And tactile.
Tactile and concrete. When we're talking about things like child safety.
Now, Nikki, I want to come in here, and earlier on you mentioned 9, 10 and 11-year-olds, the dross incidents, which we're all very horrified about. I spoke about it with a clinical psychologist last Wednesday. That was a 6-year-old child.
Yeah.
And people with children in that age group, and perhaps a little younger, want to start sensitizing their children. How do they do it without frightening them off? And how does that conversation start?
So how do we prepare our children for a world that is not always kind? A world that is quite threatening and hostile in many ways, and yet, not every child is going to fall prey to a predator, a pedophile, a rapist. Okay, so let's understand that. While there is the potential for it, most children will remain unscathed. It is about having a series of conversations, but also about teaching them how to self-protect from that very young age. Because as you say, there was a young child, how do we have those conversations? Going back to what I said earlier, whether it's the safety talk or the sex talk, it starts from a young age. When you first start taking your children to shopping centers, when they can walk, you need to be having the safety conversations. And interestingly, when I do my digital safety talks for schools, which start from about grade 4 now and go through to the teenage years, I ask every single group, so how have your parents taught you to keep safe in the real world? Now I'm there to speak about the online world, but I actually start with the real.
Right.
Because they understand concrete, real stuff that they can see, touch and feel. So how have your parents helped you to learn how to stay safe and to protect yourself in the real world? And the hands go up all the time. They can't wait to tell me what their parents have taught them. And it starts off with things like, don't play with fire, don't play with matches, don't run with knives, don't run with scissors. And then it's things like, don't catch lifts with strangers, don't take sweets from strangers, don't take drinks from strangers, don't get in the white van with the man outside school. It's always a white van with a man, which is insane because it isn't. Okay.
Right,
That's how we were brought up, but it actually isn't.
Yes.
So don't hitchhike. That's a big, big thing. Then I say to them things like, what about road safety? Oh, yes. Look left, right, and left again before you cross the road. It's a very practical thing. We wouldn't let our children walk across the road without first teaching them how to do it safely. And then I say, what about fire safety? Oh, yes, yes, yes. When we were 5, we went to the fire station. And I say, and what did they teach you at the fire station? And they all remember this. Stop, drop, and roll. Because when there's a fire, stop, drop, get low down because the oxygen is down there. And if you're on fire, you roll to smother the flames.
Okay.
And I turn that into...
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because we didn't get to go to the fire station when we were young, you see. And then I turn that into a digital safety mantra of stop, block, and tell. If you are being approached by somebody online, bullied, somebody who is trying to lure you into a private chat room or something like that, or you see something going on with somebody else in a WhatsApp group or etc., it's stop, block, and tell. Stop engaging with that bully. The weird thing is children want to keep engaging with the person being horrible to them because they're paying them attention.
Right, okay, let's take an ad break. We'll come back and pick up on that thought. Nikki Bush, author and motivational speaker as well, is in studio talking about child safety. Don't go away, we'll be back right after the ad break, continuing this fascinating discussion. Welcome back. Nikki Bush, the parenting expert and author, is in studio talking to us about children, safety rules, not crossing boundaries, and a whole host more. And we're going to pick up where we left off, the issue around negative attention. Dangerous stuff, isn't it?
Yes, it's an interesting point that you raised, Julie, because we as a human race, any human being wants to be seen. We want to be noticed. And that's often how children get themselves into trouble, particularly online, because that's how they get groomed. They become easy targets, easy prey to a predator or a pedophile who is fishing, who is grooming children to take advantage of them. And especially when they get into the teenage years, that's why social media works so well. How many followers can I have? Because that makes me look popular. It's how you are seen, how you are perceived. If I have 1,000 or 2,000 friends, and that's of course a complete misnomer because you don't know all of them, then I must be liked and I must be popular.
Or followers. News for you, Nikki, it's not only teenagers, you have young adults and even older adults that are so hooked into social media popularity. It's unbelievable.
100%.
And they put their entire lives on the line, all of their personal information for the whole world to see.
So we put ourselves at risk. And these are some of the lessons we need to teach our children in terms of self-protection, is not to give away too many contact details online, not to give away their physical address, their phone number. They don't even have to put their school name down. And when they're taking photographs, to switch off the location settings on their phone, because if they don't, any photograph that they publish online can be interrogated for the GPS coordinates, right back to their school or their bedroom, wherever it is, and put them at risk.
So what age group are you addressing this issue to?
Any child with a smartphone.
Okay.
Any child with an internet-linked smartphone is taking photographs, because the camera has allowed us all to become celebrities, and it's also enabled us all to become the paparazzi, taking photos of each other and sharing those. And that is fine within a very small closed group, but it's not okay in the broader sense, because predators, pedophiles, child traffickers have a shopping list. It's not random. They have a shopping list.
Sure.
They're looking for children who fit particular criteria. And that's why I say we have to speak to children in concrete terms. Human beings can be bought and sold, like groceries on the shelves in the stores.
Absolutely.
Like I go as a mummy with my shopping list to my local supermarket, It's exactly the same with criminal syndicates. They have a shopping list of whether they want boys, girls, what age, what color eyes, what color hair, etc. And we have to make sure our children are aware of this. It's not going to happen to everybody, but you need to self-protect and limit the opportunities you give those people to access you. Just like in our homes, we try and limit our risk by closing and locking our front door, having a security gate, and having an alarm system and beams. In our own personal lives, out there online and offline in the real world, we also have to have a little checklist in our heads where we're not giving those people who don't have our best interests at heart too many open doors and opportunities to access us. And so we must talk to our children about not walking alone when they go to the shops,
Let me come
when
in
they
here.
go to the toilet,
Right,
in public
Nikki,
space.
Off air we were having a very interesting discussion, and what you're saying now is really about unknown entities that are trolling
Strangers,
the internet,
unknown
and
to your children.
Absolutely, and they're trying to glean all of this information so that they can target your child.
Yes.
But we are also told that perpetrators, sex and other perpetrators, normally obviously target our children are people that we know, or people that are known to us. So what's the difference here, and what ought we be telling our children?
Maybe we should talk about what is the connection between the two, because the reason why the perpetrators of crimes who our children don't know often get away with it is because they have been watching the child. They haven't just been watching the child, but they may have already picked up on the child's name, and when they walk past the child, they might just say, "Hello, so-and-so." So the child becomes familiar with the face, becomes familiar with the fact that this person is familiar with them. They're calling them by their name. They get to know enough for the child to drop their guard. Now, when it comes to talking about family and friends who perpetrate crimes, I think this is the travesty of society, isn't it? That we often teach our children about stranger danger.
Right.
And yet 80% of the crimes committed against children are committed by people who are within the family circle and the friendship circle. People our kids know very, very well. So they're comfortable and they don't suspect. And if it happens, they are so shocked that they don't even know how to react, because this is not stranger danger. And my mum and dad have told me about stranger danger, but this is my uncle or this is my cousin. And now what do I do?
Are there signs and symptoms that mom could pick up if something like that has happened? Let's assume a granddad or an uncle or a friend, a family friend, has violated your child. Is there anything that you could pick up on to see that there's just something not right here in this relationship?
Often it's a situation where that child is reticent about seeing that person, but can't tell you why, or that there is this withdrawal, that children withdraw and they become quiet, their eating habits change, their sleep habits change, fears might come to the surface. It's a difficult one because it's actually about being tuned into your child, reading between the lines, because they're not going to tell you. It's reading between the lines. And that's another thing, Julie, is to teach our children to trust their gut feel. If something is feeling uncomfortable and you can't explain why, then you are probably right and you must talk to me when you're feeling that uncomfortable feeling, even if you don't know what to say about it. It's your subconscious, it's that bigger part of you telling you something is wrong. And if somebody tells you to keep a secret, then you need to be on your guard. So what I'm saying to you is, we are teaching our children, we're giving them scenario planning skills.
Without frightening them.
If this happens, then what should you do? If you should experience, in the unlikely event that you should experience something like this, how should you handle it? What should you do? What are the steps? Because then you're creating a blueprint for them that's somewhere in here, that when that what if moment happens, when they're asked for a naked selfie by somebody on a cell phone or on social media. What are you going to do when somebody asks you to send them a naked selfie? That is a question you need to actually answer for yourself right here and right now. You need to make a decision that you're not going to do that, because what can happen with that? The person who asks you for it will always promise you that it's going to remain private. Just like our social media, channels have terms and conditions which change all the time. Don't trust the terms and conditions. Be in control of your own reputation and your own safety. So in that situation, use it as a teachable moment, like this thing that happened in the Dross. Teachable moment. I will be walking with you to the toilet. Should we be in a restaurant? Should we be in a public shopping centre? Because things like this can happen. They don't always happen, but they can. And I'm your parent, and it's my responsibility to keep you safe. Obviously, when they're little, under the age of 5, you'll probably go into the cubicle with them. And then gradually you'll be standing outside waiting at the basin. And by the time they're 10, you'll be waiting outside the door into the bathroom. Even with my own children who are boys, when they were around the age of 10, I would say to them that they needed to go to the Luna shopping centre. I will be waiting outside the men's room. If you're not out in 3 minutes, I'm coming in.
It's okay to say that.
Absolutely. I'm your mum. And if you're not out in 3 minutes and I suspect that you're in trouble, I'm coming in. That's really okay. It's a scenario. This is our plan. Obviously, if your husband or the dad is available, he'll go in with you. But where you're the opposite sex, it's a little bit tricky, isn't it? Or you might have to go and use the disabled toilets because 2 of you can fit in at once. So those are instances where we can help our children to either protect themselves or we can help to protect them. And it is about having those conversations that, if somebody tells you not to tell me something, and if you do, they're going to hurt me, because this is what they do. If you tell your parents this, I'm going to hurt your mother. If you tell your parents about this, I'm going to hurt your sister. And then children are so frightened that they don't tell. But if we've already had the conversation, saying, should anyone ever threaten you like this, that's a red flag that you must tell me.
Okay, Nikki, we've come to wrap up time. Won't you summarize very quickly, very especially internet bullying and predators on the internet?
Well, they're usually disguised, Julie, and that's what's so hard about this. So a 60-year-old man or woman might be disguised as a 16-year-old girl. Our children really should be brought up to understand that if they've got 1,000 followers or friends, a lot of those people aren't people who know them. How can they measure who's good and who's bad? So at the end of the day, it is about not giving away too many contact details. Never meet an online stranger offline.
Ooh.
And definitely not alone, because this is how children get into very serious trouble, is that they are lured because they are seeking attention into a trap. They fall into the trap of, oh, he must love me. I have to meet him. My mother would never understand. And then they take that step of meeting somebody offline in the real world, and who knows what that person might be like, whether they have good intentions or bad intentions for our children. So to bring our children up with a healthy sense of skepticism without freaking them out completely, to find that balance of using teachable moments that come along to have conversations around the dinner table, in the car, in their bedrooms, bath, whatever, rather than having the talk. It's a drip process.
Absolutely. Lovely talking to you again after almost a year. Can't wait to see you in about 6 weeks' time when we're going to talk some more about a whole host of issues. I think we're going to be talking about toys the next time you're in.
Definitely. Thank you, Julie.
My pleasure. You go well. It was really lovely seeing you again.
And you.
That was the lovely Nikki Bush, author and creative parenting expert, talking to us about stranger danger. Stay with us. We're going to now talk safe play spaces for our children, and later on we're going to talk about biodegradable materials and plastics. Okay, we're now joined by two lovely ladies from Play Africa. They are Gretchen Wilson-Prangley and also the lovely Mashilo Malebane. They're here to talk about this amazing space that they have created, together with their partners, of course, and they're going to talk about Play Africa and the role Play Africa plays in South Africa. Good morning, ladies. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
I've had you on before on the show, and I just want to understand what sort of developments have happened as far as Play Africa is concerned. And I also know that you've roped in lots of young people to possibly add another dimension to Play Africa. But for those people that didn't get to watch the first interview, who and what is Play Africa?
Great. Well, thank you so much. Play Africa brings children and families together from across Johannesburg for very experiential, hands-on learning that fosters innovation, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. And we try to really inspire another generation of young inventors and innovators and makers and creators through very meaningful play-based experiences. And we do that in a shared space where we bring children together from all backgrounds, all languages, all cultures, to really get a chance to come together in an equalizing space in South Africa to learn and create and discover together. And we do that with school field trips, and we do that with families. We're based at Constitution Hill, where we've been for the last...
That's your permanent home
That's
now.
where we're at since for the last 18 months.
Okay.
And we're based inside what's, you know, as you may know about Constitution Hill, it's an iconic site. It's the home now, the seat of the Constitutional Court, and home to a lot of different nonprofit partners. But we are physically located inside the Old Fort former prison. So it's a very interesting kind of environment where we have now trying to take this former prison, which still has bars on the windows, it still has the concrete courtyards, and we are transforming that space through our work 5 days a week by transforming it and this incredible heritage site from a space that was once a site of humiliation and oppression, confinement and restriction, and turning it and reimagining it and remaking it into a space of joyful discovery and learning with young people. And
fascinating, because it's also an opportunity for parents and for the people that interact with the children in that space to share the history of the country in their time of playing with Play Africa. So I think it's a great opportunity.
We really believe that's true too. I mean, Constitution Hill is now known as the Human Rights Precinct, and we really think about how can we really make human rights and children's rights manifested at a really child-appropriate level. And that means creating spaces where they're safe, they're seen, they're heard, they're valued, they're loved, they're nurtured, and they're inspired and encouraged to discover and explore, to play freely and openly. And one of the things that we've found, especially for families that are coming from environments where their children do not have play areas that are easily accessible, the parents again and again, and teachers again and again say, our children feel so free here. And sometimes that really is very touching when we think about the fact that literally we are in this former prison just outside of where Nelson Mandela was once incarcerated. And here we are now bringing this space where parents and children and families are saying that they feel so free.
Michelle, how did your journey begin with Play Africa, and what are you doing there currently?
My journey began on the 1st of June. This year. Yes, so I've only been there for like 5 months. So my experience there has been amazing. When I first came to Play Africa, I didn't know of a kids museum. I've never heard of that before. So me being there and seeing the exhibits, you know, the type of toys that kids play with, the educational toys, it is amazing. I could never trade that for any feeling in this world. So me being there, we do different activities with the kids. We have storytelling, we have Ingwadi Otando, and we have hands-on maths that gives them a very great experience for the kids.
Did you have to go through some skills training for you to be in this space?
Yes, I did have to do that. I did child and youth development.
Wow.
So I've learned how to deal with different kids, and also that we have sensory days where we deal with kids with autism. So that has been an amazing journey for me.
And this training was offered by Play Africa themselves?
No, it was not offered by Play Africa. It was offered by Africa Tikkun, and then they got me in touch with Play Africa. That's where I'm doing my experience. I'm learning and I'm doing the work. No longer reading, but I'm doing the work.
Hands
I'm on
on.
the ground. Yes.
And no looking back.
No looking back. We're going forward.
Amazing story. Gretchen, back to you. For people who've never experienced Play Africa, I haven't, and thank you for the invitation. I certainly am going to visit you guys one day. What can you expect if you take your family there? Age groups, what can, is there perhaps criteria involved? Or can you come in with any age group, and how much of supervision is involved?
Sure, that's a great question. So we're open to all families and all schools from across Greater Johannesburg. We actually have families and schools now coming from Northwest Province, the Free State, and elsewhere because they've seen what we do, they follow us on social media, and they want to be a part of it. To come to Constitution Hill, you can either get there by public transport or you can get there by private car. You can also get there on different kinds of transport routes like the Gautrain bus or the red bus that goes around Johannesburg.
And I should imagine parking's not a problem. You have sufficient parking
We have
bays.
ample parking at the main Constitutional Hill parking. It's underground secure parking. And once you get there, you just walk through the precinct and follow the signs to Play Africa. Play Africa is based inside a small set of rooms, and then we have outdoor courtyard spaces that we also use for our programs like our Imagination Playground or our Rigamajig, which is an engineering building tool. Everything that we've tried to create is something that you would never have seen before in a typical creche or school environment. So we really are trying to show people a value proposition that could be a wow experience for any child. We also really create experiences that parents can also connect with their children. So unlike a place that might be a drop-off zone where you would drop off children and then come and collect them later, we really try to nurture that family bonding or just that shared memory making that can happen when you have parents and families come together. So we oftentimes say, it's like if you were thinking about an outing to the zoo or an outing to Sibona Discovery Center, you would go the same way with the same idea to Play Africa. We really cater to young children from birth, really, up through age 10.
Wow.
So we do have a range of different baby and toddler interventions that are stimulating early learning. We also, look at up to around age 10. And the reason why we've stopped at age 10 is not a fixed number, but we just really feel that it's so important these days to focus on interventions for the youngest among us that can't speak out for themselves. So we really try to champion children's rights and be an advocate for the youngest children who might not have the vocabulary or the power structures to advocate for their own learning. And we hope to be that kind of wow experience for every family and every parent and every educator that comes through to our
You are open on a Saturday.
Yes, we're open 5 days a week from Tuesday through Saturday. Tuesdays through Fridays, we're open 9:30 to 3:30, and Saturdays 9:30 to 12:30. And we do welcome school field trips from across the Greater Joburg and Gauteng.
And that, I should imagine, has to be done via appointment because you can only cater for X amount of people.
Precisely.
What is the top amount that you can accommodate at any given day?
We do functions. We have done functions for up to 150 people. We find that 60 children tends to be a really lovely number because it gives every child enough space to discover on their own, and it really gives them a lot of leeway. So that's kind of a number that we use internally. In terms of costing it, you know that we're a non-profit company and non-profit business, and so we are, as a charity, we welcome donations. We don't charge a fixed amount, but we ask everyone to make a contribution as they're able, a pay what you can kind of model.
And if someone comes without even making contribution, they're not turned away?
They are not turned away.
Okay. Sorry, carry on.
No, we just want to make sure, part of what we're trying to do is create a shared space in our city where anyone can come together on equal terms and explore and discover and kind of champion childhood in that space. And for that reason, we really don't want cost to be a barrier to access. So we find donors helping subsidize some of the schools that we tend to work with who cannot pay any fees. But what we found also is that many of the inner city schools that we work with do make contributions of 40 or 50 rand per child.
Oh, wow.
So it shows us that there's really a lot of value they associate with the experience.
Your experience in terms of the different types of playthings, play toys and equipment, is it the first ever time that you've seen this type of equipment, and do you truly believe that it enhances the child's experience and learning?
Oh yes.
Give us some examples too, please.
All right. We have the hands-on mats. So it comes with different shapes. It teaches them how to shapes and how to make shapes, like 3D shapes. And we also had the farm to market, which teaches them entrepreneurship skills. It teaches them colors. It teaches them fruits and vegetables, what type of fruits get planted and how do they grow. So I've never seen any type of toys that are like that, because I've been to different daycares, but I've never seen anything like that before. It is totally different.
How do you get involved with the children and the play?
What I do, I don't necessarily be there. I try and give them a space where they explore, and then where I come in is if they need assistance. So we just let children be. We don't want to be like teachers trying to tell them do that, do that. We just let them be, and then if they need assistance, we are always there to assist them.
Okay, great stuff. Let's go for our first ad break. We'll be back to talk some more about this amazing space called Play Africa. The ladies from Play Africa are here. If you haven't been yet, this is a must-go-to place for your children. It's at Constitution Hill, and you can make a small donation and spend some quality time with your little darlings. Play Africa's in studio talking about this amazing concept. Gretchen and the lovely Mashilo are here to give their perspective on Play Africa. Gretchen, this started somewhere in the States and you've brought it here to South Africa. Give us a little bit of history to Play Africa.
Sure. So Play Africa in itself is a very South African creation, but we've been inspired by what are known globally as something called children's museums. We oftentimes don't use that term here in South Africa because the term museum in a South African context, I think, conjures up a lot of images of the exact opposite of what we're doing. We're a very dynamic, alive, vibrant space that's not about looking at anything, but really actually using and touching and feeling and experimenting.
Action-orientated.
Extremely action-oriented, colorful, fun, full of laughter, full of trial, full of trying things out, stretching your limits, trying new things, and play. And most people wouldn't associate that with a typical museum. But the concept globally is called a children's museum, and they exist everywhere around the world. In New York City alone, there are 7 unique children's museums. So independently, we created something here called Play Africa, with the idea that we felt that, especially given apartheid's history, it would be very important to create a shared space where anyone can come together to experience the top-notch learning in science, technology, engineering, maths, the arts, really having a shared space where anyone could walk through the doors and feel seen, could feel recognized, could feel treated with respect as they are experiencing and trying out new things as a young person. So that's where we began.
We spoke last year about Play Africa, and since then you have indicated that you've introduced new stuff and a new program. What's different and what's new at Play Africa?
We have so many different exhibits and programs. A few of the things that have happened recently is we've introduced special hours for children on the autism spectrum and with sensory processing challenges. 2 days a month we have special access hours where we make consideration and special provision with children with disabilities. And we found that to be an extremely valuable offering to the public. We did this in partnership with Autism South Africa and the Gauteng Department of Education's autism specialist. And we did so in creating special exhibits that are designed for the sensory processing needs of children on that spectrum. It's the first of its kind, a sensory wall that's been created in Africa that we know of. It's been designed and built here in South African in South Africa by South Africans, inspired by something we've seen at the Brooklyn Children's Museum. And
that's especially for children with autism. But what about regular children that would like to also experience that? Do you restrict them?
No.
It's
open to
all?
everyone.
Oh.
The idea is that we wanted to model what would it look like for a publicly accessible cultural institution to really think about making special provision for all children. And so we started with children with autism just because we had found so many parents saying that they felt that they lived a life of social isolation. They didn't have places to play with their children where they wouldn't be looked at or judged or stereotyped. So we felt that that would be a nice place to start in partnership with the parents and the children themselves.
And what's the uptake been like?
It's been incredible. So we have 2 days a month where we have these special access hours, and we see children with all kinds of special needs now starting to come to these special access hours, because I think they feel when they come to Play Africa, they enter a judgment-free zone. They enter a place where people see them as whole human beings, where they're encouraged to play, and where people can really feel free. And I mean, I know that Mashilo spoke about this with me in the car, about an experience that she saw when we first started doing these programs.
Just before you get to that, let me ask you this question. What about children in wheelchairs? Do you accommodate them?
We definitely do. We do the best we can. We always try to think that the environment is the disability, not the child.
All right, and the 2 days a month that you've set aside especially for children with disabilities, what about other children that come along on that day?
They're always welcome.
Always.
So all children, regardless of ability, are always welcome at any time. It's just that when we think about some of the special needs for children on that spectrum, we create spaces with lower dim lighting. We create special chill out zones when the sensory kind of stimulation...
Is not in overdrive.
Exactly. So we do special things like that on those special days, just to give parents to put something on the calendar and say, this is a day that I know that that I'm going to meet other parents with children with similar special needs. But anyone is always welcome at all times. And again, we're not here to label or judge any child or any family. We're here to be a place where every family across the city of Joburg can feel like this is my place.
Absolutely.
And I feel welcome here.
So they're welcome with dignity and respect.
Absolutely.
Mashilo, you're going to share an experience with us. What is that?
It was the first sensory day I've been to.
It's called a sensory day.
Yes, it's called a sensory day. So it was one of my colleagues, his name is Bonke, and the child's name is Kagiso. So what happened is Kagiso can't really hear, so I could say he's a bit deaf. So what happened is I saw him connecting with Bonke. They were able to communicate, even though Bonke can't be able to speak like sign language, but they were able to communicate in a way that they understood each other, and that for me was just amazing.
Awesome. Gretchen, you speak about children with disabilities. Do you cater for blind children?
Yes, absolutely. Children of all abilities. And we really, again, aren't trying to label any child or anything. So we really try to make our space as accessible as possible, and then we accommodate the environment to meet the needs of the child. So when a child is in a wheelchair or a child is coming in blind, we will then almost think empathetically and ask them, is there anything that we can do to make this experience more appropriate for you? So we really believe in this process of nothing about us without us. So we really just ask people, ask their caretakers, what can we do to make this experience more inclusive for you? For us, it's about not just the experience of these special days, but it's about an ethos that we want to model for what we would like to see replicated across the city of Joburg and across South Africa, which is really thinking about how do we truly create inclusive spaces. Again, inclusive not just of different backgrounds and different languages and different abilities, but just truly a space that feels like it could be for anyone. And we really want to see more spaces like that, not just at Play Africa, but across the country.
And obviously these are very safe spaces, because we've heard about the horrific stuff going on in restaurants, etc. We're all familiar with the story. I'm talking about the Dross case. That's a reported case. We are also told that 64 children in South Africa are raped on a daily basis, but it goes unreported, so we're not aware of it. So this, you would say, is a safe space, but the children do have to come with their caregivers.
Yes, that's
because
right.
you can't take that responsibility.
Precisely.
Okay.
That's very critical, and I think what we're trying to do is really about, it starts from the seed of an idea that what would it look like to create safe spaces for all children to come together and not only gather together but learn and thrive together. And for us, that safety issue and that security issue is such a fundamental thing for us. So all of our team has been trained in our child safety policy and child protection. We really take that quite seriously, and that's why we really require that adults supervising adults be part of the journey as well, so that we can ensure that there's not any undue pressure put on our caregivers to supervise an inordinate number of children. So it's something that we really think is quite important. You know, according to UNICEF, I'm not sure if you've heard the statistic, but only 29% of South Africa's children have access to safe play areas. So when we think about the day-to-day lived reality of children in our country, these kinds of spaces, which we're now replicating in other spaces across the country, really play an incredible part, not only in stimulating early learning and thinking and making and innovation, but also in just providing that safe space where they can be a child and feel protected.
Mashilo, you also said that this can be a very experiential and quality time for parents and children. So how do you get the parents to be involved with the child in this play area at Play Africa? What is it that they do?
They play with the kids. So, for instance, if the child wants to go to farm to market, maybe the mom will be the cashier and the kid will be the buyer. Okay. So that's how we let the kids play with their mom, so that they can have a shared memory, a shared experience. We don't just get there and let them play alone. No, we want to play all together. And
definitely parents can't drop their kids off and disappear and come back for them an hour or two later. You're not a babysitting service.
Precisely.
You are an experiential, fun time for families.
That's exactly right. And we also we are, again, trying to be a judgment-free zone. We're not there to judge parents in their parenting style. We're not there to tell them what to do. We just try to create the space and let them know that we're here for them if they need support. We do find that sometimes a parent who just feels like they just need to sit down and rest and just chill for a little bit, but they know that their children are playing safely. As long as they're there keeping an eye on them, we're not there trying to push them into play.
Oh, so they can come and have the children play freely, and they can just
sit and watch
and supervise.
Exactly,
perhaps.
Exactly. They can relax. We're not there to force anyone to be hyperactive with their children. It's simply to be a space where they can come together and have that experience. And for us, that's really about, we see it as really trying to advance children's rights, their rights to be able to explore and discover and connect with others in a safe environment.
Okay, when I spoke to you last, and now I talk to you, we see the changes and the growth for Play Africa. You've talked about the sensory days for children with disabilities, and I think that is really amazing. Future plans for Play Africa?
Sure. So we have so many different programs that we're launching in the next 6 months. We've really, Constitution Hill is an incredible location for us to be at.
Sorry to rush you, but we've almost come to the end of the show, so 1-2 very quick pointers.
We're looking for additional space to set up a satellite location, a much bigger space where we can bring all of our exhibits together, and we're also looking for other partners to help us on our journey to expand, not just in Gauteng, but across the country.
And of course, future partners you're talking about, they can look at it as their CSI social responsibility.
We're a Section 18A nonprofit company that offers tax benefits, and we're also a Level 1 BBBE partner in ownership, SED, enterprise development, and skills development.
There you go. Final word from you, Mashilo.
Come to Play Africa and have this wonderful experience. You can never trade it for anything.
Wonderful. And I came with our children, but I still have a great experience.
Yes, you will definitely have a great experience yourself.
Well, it's been absolute fun having you guys in studio. I can't wait to get to Play Africa. I will be seeing you guys very, very shortly. Good luck, and I can't wait to meet you guys in your bigger and better premises.
Thank you very much.
Go well. That was the lovely Gretchen Wilson-Prangley and Mashilo Malebane from Play Africa. If you haven't been yet, I've been told amazing things about the space. Get your kids and go and have a wonderful experiential learning, fun learning time, 2-3 hours, and you'll look at life differently, I think. Don't go away. We're going to be talking to the lovely Shabana Ebrahim about biodegradable materials. And welcome back. We have the lovely Shabana Ebrahim in studio, and she's here to talk about biodegradable packaging. Now, we know that we're in the space, not only here in South Africa, but all around the world. They're talking about the devastating impact of the environment by plastic, single-use plastic. We've seen what it's done to our marine life. And here comes someone by the name of Shabana, and she thinks she has the solution to our problems. Let's hope so. Let's talk to Shabana and hear what biodegradable packaging and plastic is all about. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me here.
It's great to have you here, and I'm dying to hear what is this all about. We've heard all the bad news. We've seen all the pictures all around the world. We've even seen the whales and the marine life being killed off because they're ingesting plastics and all the dump that, you know, all our old plastic that's being dumped into rivers and seas. I'm wondering how you came across this concept and why you believe this is the answer to our woes, not only in South Africa, but all around the world.
Well, firstly, before I go into the product, I think we have to take into cognizance the landfills. What is happening in our countries with the landfills?
Well, there's no space any longer.
There's no space. We have over 133 landfills in this country, and of which, say, Pretoria has closed off 2 or 3 of them of recent because they're supposed to be finished in another 25 years. They still had they were supposed to be sort of operational in the 25 years, but they're not. They're just filling up.
They're full to capacity.
Absolutely full. I mean, look, we have, say, 19 million tons of garbage, of which 630,000 tons is only recycled. So what happens to the balance? But I'm not saying all is plastic. There could be other things as well. But you know, it's crazy that we are moving faster of generating plastic and instead of getting rid of them. And I was in other countries, and I was in India many years ago, and I thought, oh, this place is terribly filthy because of the plastic bags. But of recent, I went back again, and I thought, oh, wow, it's cleaned up a bit. I mean, quite a bit. So I wanted to know what can be replaced for the plastics.
So you did a lot of investigation whilst you were in India to find out what they've been doing. I'm wondering how open were they to share all this information with you?
Well, quite. I mean, I've been to a few factories there. I've even spoke to environmentalists there. I'm with Greenpeace. I'm an environmentalist. So I'm a regular contributor to Greenpeace as well. So with that, I think my whole life is the environment. But I can tell you that when I was investigating, I seen that they were trying to get the poorer people to get to recycle, get all the garbage out of the oceans, and they've got sort of paddle boats everywhere to try and get the youngsters who are not in school to go and earn a keep kind of thing. But still, that wasn't enough because there's still plastic. So I did an investigation. I went through our internet. Google's very good. And I found a company in Sweden which has an additive that is added to the plastic. And what happens is it's like a Pac-Man. I don't know if you remember Pac-Man.
Yes.
That's amazing. I think everybody remembers.
Gobbles everything up.
I don't know, maybe I'm too older. But you see, what happens is that it gobbles up. So this additive comes and it is putting the plastic in the manufacturing process, and it eats at the plastic. So it's an additive. So I thought, well, that's amazing. However, I said to the guys, what happens and how long does it degrade? Because it must degrade now. And they said, look here, as soon as it is exposed to natural elements, water, oxygen, all of those things, it will degrade. They're guaranteeing it. And I thought, okay, that sounds very interesting, and let's put it to the test.
And this is the technology being used in India as well?
Yes, and most countries, because I was speaking to somebody from France. In France, they completely ban plastic bags. That's not a no-go zone. But I spoke to somebody in Oslo, And she was saying that she was now invited me to talk to the minister. But what is happening is that there's not such a ban on plastic bags because people have a lot of money there. So the minute you go to, if it costs 50 cents, if you've got money, you're going to buy it. You don't care. So what we're saying is that
that hasn't made a difference in South Africa. We're paying for plastic bags, and yet we're creating this litter with plastic bags and other rubbish that's, as we've said, going into all our water systems and creating such a huge problem to the environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I do a couple of charities, and I was doing a couple of charity runs, and every place that we went to, it was just. I mean, you're going for a healthy run, and it was just laden with plastic bags.
Litter.
It was just plastic bags, and funny enough, I thought it was with the people that were running were throwing the bags or throwing the. I said, look, there's something wrong here. This picture is not very good. But I'm saying, if we cannot train them into recycling as best as we could, because we like a soda water syndrome. You bring the bags in, you put your recycling bins in your house, you're very excited, you let show everybody, and 3 months down the line you forget what to do, and so the schools, they put all these recycling bins. I tell you, I went there 2 months after they had put it was empty. Mm-hmm. So they did this recycling for the children to educate them, and they made a big thing that you bring all your bottles from home, and all the kids were so excited. So everybody collected a ton of bottles or whatever it was, bottle caps and whatever. And that was the end. All the bins were empty. So that's not working. Something is wrong there. So if it's not working recycled, then we got to find something that is going to go into the ground. So what we're saying is that, look, you have 133 landfills, and of that, at least 1 million tons of it is hazardous waste. Now, hazardous waste could mean your gloves from your hospitals, your aprons from your hospitals, apart from your injections and all that kind of thing. But the hazardous waste, we have something that I have found that is water soluble. So in other words, now you have your gloves and you have your apron, they finish the operation, they put it in another plastic bag which is water soluble, you can throw it in with your linen and it will come out on the other end, it's gone. There is no plastic bag at all because it's water soluble. So you have many ways of getting this plastic out of the environment,
out of the system, and also hazardous stuff.
Yes.
Okay, just before we continue the discussion on biodegradable plastic and hazardous waste, I'm fascinated. You've told me you represent Greenpeace as well. What's your background? You come from an engineering or a chemical background, and why? And I know on a casual trip to India, you happened on all of this litter and you decided something needs to be done. So who is Shabana Ebrahim?
Well, Shabana Ebrahim, I own my own industrial and engineering supplies. I have been in the engineering industry for over 30 years.
What sort of supplies?
Engineering and industrial. So we do, it was all more in the truck and trailer industry. I was more involved in the design of trucks and trailers and other things. But that's a little bit behind me now because I thought if I'm going into semi-retirement, I thought it would be best that I give something back. I love my charities, but at the same time I thought, because I'm an environmentalist, I need to bring this back. I need to tell South Africa that we have to go biodegradable. That's where I'm...
Now you're here talking to me, I can feel the passion. Have you approached the powers that be? Have you talked with government? Have you talked to other environmentalists? Because they need to buy into this concept. What you're saying to me sounds very exciting. The proof is in the pudding, and you're going to show us an example just now. But if it's as good as you saying that it is, how come we've not heard about it before, and how come people are not jumping up and down with excitement?
I like the question. Why are they not? Firstly, the plastic industry feels that they're going to be losing jobs.
Ah, of course.
They feel that we have so many guys that are on the streets, the guys that are picking up the recycled plastics and things like that. They feel that that's not going to give them enough jobs. They feel that, there's no scope for biodegradable, because they want to be able to get the plastic and things like that. They think they're going to keep the jobs, but if you don't have life, you're not going to have no jobs.
Okay, let's come after the ad break. This is really fascinating, and let's see what else we can unpack in the show. Shabana Ebrahim is here to talk to us about biodegradable packaging, and I'm just wondering, how come we've not heard about this before, and should we be jumping up and down about this concept? We'll hear more about this right after the ad break. Biodegradable packaging is what we're talking about with Shabana Ebrahim, born and bred in South Africa, and she's here, she says, to make a difference in our lives. Is this biodegradable packaging, plastic bags, carrier bags, whatever you call them, is it available locally? Because it sounds like the answer to all of our problems.
Look, it's not easily available at this moment, because obviously we need to get government, we need to get the bigger shopping, the shopping malls and all of these guys to get involved to say, look, that we need to go biodegradable. Okay, they have orders now for years or months or whatever in process and all the kind of things. So for them to get into it takes a little bit of time. So it's fine. My company will manufacture this according to the needs of the people. But you have to take into cognizance that this is not it might be a few cents, a little bit more expensive because of the costing. The costing
might be the barrier to entry, perhaps.
Probably, yes. Mm-hmm. But in the production line, once the production gets bigger, obviously then that would be not a problem.
So when we talk costs, give us a comparison. What are we paying for a plastic bag today, and what are we paying? About 55 cents, and what would your biodegradable cost?
Maybe 57 cents, 58 cents.
Oh, so
under
that's
the 16
negligible.
cents. Yeah, it's not like crazy. What I maybe suggest is that if people are more excited about this, give them two options at the counters. Would you like biodegradable? Would you like recyclable?
And what does it look like? Does it look like a conventional bag?
It looks like a conventional bag. It's exactly like your normal bag, your normal plastic bag. You have the same microns. You can have it a thicker micron, and you can carry the same amount of weight. It's the same weight. The only disadvantage, you must know, you might only get it to use it twice or thrice, because it starts to disintegrate. Right. So obviously you're not going to get, if a person is really recycling, then he would go for the recycled ones, because he will use it till the end of its time. But if you are not a recycler and you don't have that education for it, I would say, then you have to go for the biodegradable, and then if it's gone, if it's dropped.
Now, when it biodegrades, what's it going to look like, and what do I do with it as it's kind of falling apart in tatters, for example, if that is how it biodegrades?
Yes, I've got a little sample. I don't know if you want to have a look at it.
Let's have a look at it. So is that what the package would look like?
This is now has degraded. In the matter of 3 months, has degraded. And if you have a look at it, if you just pull it,
Yes.
Can you see what's happening? Mm-hmm. It is all
and it feels like plastic. It feels like soft plastic.
Oh yeah, this is now already the thicker one. It depends on the amount of the thickness you have for the plastic. So obviously, if you want something to last 2 years, at the moment I'm busy with a guy who's doing dog food, but he says he wants a shelf life of 2 years. Now that's something that you say, okay, if this is degrading in a couple of months, what happens to a shelf life of 2 years? I said, that's not a problem. We will put less the additive, not more, less the additive so it can last. But the minute the 2 years expiry is, then in 6 months it will disintegrate.
So what is this additive, and how friendly is the additive to the environment? Because I get a sense that obviously there's got to be some sort of a chemical component in the biodegradable plastic that you're manufacturing for it to degrade as quickly as it does? And is that friendly to the environment?
Absolutely. All this additive is non-toxic. Absolutely 100% non-toxic. What it is that some of them is made of corn flour. So obviously corn flour is corn. You can eat it. There's no problem. So if it goes into the ocean and it goes into the fish decide that, assuming it lands, I think that's very unlikely, but if it does, I'm now having a picnic, it lands up in the ocean. When the fish get it, by the time the fish get it, because it's going into the water is making it disintegrate, by the time he gets it,
there's nothing. Okay, how long has this been tried and tested abroad, and where and how is it being used in other countries? How widely is it being used?
Well, it's tested for over at least 8 to 10 years now. They've put it in process and things like that. People from many countries are going the biodegradable route because they find they can't train their people to recycle. In Rwanda, they banned it completely. If you're
I'm aware of it.
You go there and you are fined heavily for plastic.
I think the only country in Africa that has banned plastic totally.
Just as a survey, we generate about 2 kilos of plastic per capita, per person, per household. So, if you do the math, 50 million people, it's just mind-boggling. And from there, if we take, say, 40% in plastic, so from 2 kilos, I'm saying 40% in plastic. We generate so much of plastic. There's no capacity to bring it into recycle.
All right, Shabana, now you're talking plastic only. What about other waste? I'm thinking, for example, we know that a lot of raw sewage lands up into our water systems. Do you have a solution for that? Is there perhaps a market for that to address that problem?
Well, I'm not trained in that, or I don't have the experience for sewage. I don't have that. Although, some countries are saying that if you take the sewage and you recycle the waters and you can bring it back into drinking water.
It's purest form.
It's pure form. Now, I myself have got a unit at home that would bring seawater. It's with salt and desalinate it right down to drinking water. That's in my home. So those are things that you can get. So I'm not sure how the environmentalists or the government is dealing with the sewage and things like that. But as far as the packaging is concerned, straws and your styrofoam instead of styrofoam.
How's that going to work? All the takeaway stores deal with these styrofoam trays. How is your product going to work with that?
We have a product that is made of leaves. It's crushed leaves. So what is crushed leaves?
Right.
It's compostable.
Right.
So if you throw that, it's going to be compostable.
And again, what is it? Does it look like our styrofoam lunch packaging?
It looks better.
And cost?
The costs are very similar.
Okay.
Very, very similar. Because you obviously are using the leaves and things like this. It's just the initial cost now of starting a manufacturing plant, say,
So you haven't started manufacturing, because now you've got me all excited. And I should imagine all of our viewers, because we want to protect our environment.
Absolutely.
We as Muslims, it is our duty to take care of our environment and our animals. So how do I then become a more responsible user and a citizen if it hasn't, if you haven't started manufacturing yet?
In the Quran, there are 700 verses that touches on environment, on wastage, on many things. It's telling us that He has put us, we are the custodian of earth.
Absolutely.
And we are khalifas.
True.
We are supposed to take care of it. And God Almighty is getting very upset. He is really getting upset. That's why all the tsunamis and all these things are happening. We causing it. The ozone layer, all that is real. So as a Muslim, I think you have to teach your children at home that if you can't recycle, you're going to have to provide a solution which is obviously biodegradable. I want to give you an example. When you're planting, you get those black bags around your trees when you plant a tree. What happens? You take out that black bag, you throw it in the dump, not recyclable because it passes. You have different stages of recycle. In the back of your bottles or something, you'll see 7 different numbers or 6 different numbers. The first, number 1 and number 2 is good recycle. After that is rubbish. So,
can I just interrupt you? We are coming to the end of the interview. will this biodegradable plastic be able to address the plastic bottle issue? We're talking plastic bags, we're talking styrofoam, food packaging. What about bottles, plastic bottles? How's that going to work with, your product work with our plastic bottling?
Yes. Now, for plastic bottling, that is not a forte that I've investigated too much. I am busy with it.
Okay.
But what they are suggesting is that rather we make it something that is compostable instead of biodegradable. There's a very difference. They say compostable.
The difference to us.
Bio is when it's exposed to light and oxygen and water, it just disintegrates into the ground and whatever.
Right.
But compostable is that when you plant this thing in there, like this black bag, for example, you plant the whole tree in there, and that thing becomes compost. So it becomes compost. You don't even have to use compost. That thing is compostable.
Obviously.
Yeah, so this is what we're saying. And I was talking to the guy from Sweden, and I said, look here, let's do something about the plastic bottles, because I was obviously running, and then I seen all these bottles, and I said, what's going on here? Because as you're running, you can't find the bin. So I asked the one lady, I said, no, pick it up, we'll come and pick it up. Really? They haven't picked up the last lot, it's still all here from previous. So this is what I'm saying is that we need to train our children, and we have to put it
we just have to become more responsible. We've reached the end of the interview. For people watching this morning who would like to start getting their hands on the stuff, do you have a small amount that is available for sale, and how do we contact you?
Okay, you can contact me. Can I give the details of my company? The company is Elston Industrial Supplies. We have it's on our website, www.elston.co.za.
Perfect.
You can get all the details on there, and from there we will work out the best deal for you, and obviously what suits your purpose.
Even private households.
Even private households.
Okay, thank you for being with us. I commend you for coming up with a solution to our problems, not only here in South Africa, but all around the world. And I wish you much success, ongoing success with biodegradable packaging. Thank you for coming and educating us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure entirely. That was Shabana Ebrahim talking about biodegradable packaging, and that's something you and I and the rest of South Africa needs to get our hands on, so that we can for once and for all overcome the issue of plastic in our waterways, in and around our homes, in and around our environments. As Muslims, it is our duty to clean up our immediate environments. And on that note then, thank you for being with us. I do hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed your company. A big thank you to the production team. Please take care on the roads. Until the next time, as always, it is Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Ali.
Ya hala, 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 ya hala. حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا